Hi, everyone. It's Roopali here at the Joint American Homeopathic Conference. I have Anne Milke here with me attending in person, and we're hoping a couple more people will come in. It's the day before the actual conference, so actually very few people are here. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes to see if more people join. So let's go with this for now. People were kind enough to send in some very, very interesting cases, and I chose two, and they are both very different. One is very much a case that's focused on the pain and the sensations. And we get to know a little bit about her as a person as well. And the other one is much more about this person and who he is in his life, what he does, his personality, and how he's placed in his life, his past, his present, his behaviors and actions. So it's about this whole person in his life. And then we have a very sort of almost a microscopic look at this woman who has this intense pain for several years now. And it's about her pain and how the pain feels and what we can learn from her in the way that she talks about her pain and her issues. So there are two very different cases, but every time you're going to look at a case, what's going to come into it is your training and how you have absorbed all the different kinds of homeopathy that are out there, and your own clinical experience, and the body of knowledge that you've accumulated by interacting with the patients that you have. And then how many cases have you seen of pulsatilla, or how many cases have you seen of scorpion, or, so that kind of clinical understanding also informs how you look at a case. And then the third thing I want to say, obviously, is also that, it's very different looking at a paper case, and in fact, a summarized paper case, than sitting in front of an actual person and absorbing that energy and the vibes that they're giving and their facial expressions and all of this extra rich information that comes when you're sitting in front of a person. So I think there's good and bad to both, because sometimes all of that extra information can be distracting. And the good side of this, a summarized paper case, is that you hope that they've kind of honed in. Almost the act of summarizing forces you to put in the bits that are most important. And so you tend to leave out some of the other stuff that's less distracting. And then you have sort of an essence of the case. So in a way, it almost becomes easier to look at the case, but then maybe the way that you're looking at the case depends on that picture that came through, and it's not the complete picture. So, there's lots of advantages and disadvantages each way. So what I thought we would do is we would start with one case, and I would show you. So this essentially has to be the way that I read the case, and I'm trying very hard to do it in a neutral way, but obviously my own training and clinical experience is going to inform the way that I interpret the case that I'm going to read. I thought we would do one case, and then we could take a little break, because I'm standing on a stage here, and I have some doubts about my ability to stand for 3 hours. So I thought we would take a break, and then we would do the other case. I did think that one case was more straightforward and the other case is a little bit twisty. So I feel like everybody's probably fresh from lunch and hopefully nobody has food coma. So I thought we would start with the sort of somewhat more complex case, and then take a break and then move on to the more straightforward one. And of course, I know straightforward for me and complex for me is also just me. So it could be the other way around for someone else. So let's see. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the case. And what I'd like to do is read through the case, and then I'll open the program and we'll start putting clipboards together and rubrics together and talk about the case. And if I see, once I've read through the case, if I see that we are still a small group of people, then I might just, I don't know if I can, but I could just make you all panelists and then we could all talk and we could all be on screen together. So let's see here. And okay, so I think that you're all just seeing the case and not my program, right? So this is a case of a woman who's 59 years old, and she suffers from pelvic pains and bladder spasms for over a decade now. And these are her verbatims. Hi. So these are her verbatims that that have been summarized. And what I've done is, as I read through the case, I have just highlighted things that seemed interesting to me. So the spasms went away, but the pain stayed, as if the sits bones are in a vice, like something is squeezing them. Shooting pains down both legs like electricity. Shooting pains up the anus like a big knife in the anus. Pains are unpredictable. They're worse sitting in the car, but better lying down. This is not consistent though. And so the homeopath notes that that she uses the word unpredictable quite a few times. So, and so the pains are affecting my marriage and sex life. We flew to Germany. I had a bladder infection, had to take antibiotics. 1 year later, the same symptoms, took antibiotics again. Might have this pain forever, sometimes every 5 minutes, sometimes not for hours. I try to distract myself. We all want to feel in control, especially in times when you don't expect it. And that again goes to unpredictable, don't expect it. There was some anxiety about getting married. So I guess she married into the South, the Southern US, which is a very unique culture, different from the North. And she had an anxiety about fitting in. Maybe sex is a trigger. Was not nervous about marriage, but the change of location. I'm not a county girl. These people are not my people. They call me weird. I felt a loss. What is going to happen? Unpredictable. So she was asked to talk about the pains being in a vice. It feels like squeezing in the area of the bone, hard to sit, pressure, squeezing. I don't have power over it. Might be 1 hour or 6 hours. It stays as long as it wants. Like a metal machine that is attached to my bones. I cannot get away. Big obstacle in my life. It is my body and I don't have power over it. Almost like betrayal, that my body is not doing what I'm asking it of. Can't count on my body to do what I'm asking. And she was asked about her fears, and she said, I would not be happy with snakes. So in the South also, there are a lot more snakes than we see in Northern US. So this is part of the landscape. And she was given a remedy. There was no change. Then there was a follow-up. At night, it's harder to push through the pain. When the pain is back, it is like pushing a boulder up the hill every day, hopeless. Husband wants me to do more. It's been a long-term issue. I'm such an introvert, and on days off, I need to be alone, to go into the woods. Husband feels we have to do everything. That probably means husband feels he has to do everything. It's hard on him. He's an extrovert. He's a forester and by himself 40 hours a week, or goes from group to group telling jokes. I've become more anxious because of the pain. Often feel I don't belong here, not able to take a deep breath. Tighter, feel it in my shoulders and chest. a lot more social anxieties. I'm the outsider. Can be lonely, makes me question my choices. Thinking of standing next to the car and waving, and they're not noticing you. My throat is closed, constricted. It's the same sensation that I have in the pelvis. What is the sensation? Like a snake, a boa constrictor. I'm not particularly afraid of them, I assume. A snake going up and down the body, twisting in both directions, getting milk out of nuts, and start squeezing out the milk. I'm not sure what that means. You're squeezing and turning. We have copperhead snakes here, not especially a large amount. A snake eats a mouse. I think that's a mouse, not moose. You see the body going down, constriction of the digestive system. Boa is a name, a constrictor. It's about being the twisting being in your gut, like fear. If I'm afraid of a situation, I feel that same sensation, tightening and twisting. Going to the women's club luncheon in middle school and hope someone sits with you. Feel the squeezing inside my throat, hard to talk. I'm not a lady, like a lunch person. It's like you're invisible. You go into this room, everyone is their friend. Felt not welcome, invisible. The struggle first in my marriage. Invisible? Feeling scared, no one sees me, gets me. It makes me feel like a preteen again. Reminds me of a trash compactor. All sides are moving in, trying to take a deep breath. I'm not in my body, trying to focus on the rest of the body. Tons of pressure. You cannot fight it. It is rigid, cold, metal. Okay. Feel safe, insecure. My breath is my first tool to work when things are challenging. A lot of them look down on me because I don't dress the way they do. Their way of doing everything. I wasn't playing by the rules. I'm trying, but not anywhere enough. Rejection. I want to be accepted, but I also don't have interest. Relief. Feel rejected. Trying to urinate and muscles are so tight, have to push it out. Muscles in the vagina are squeezed. A pepper grinder, like a water hose. A needle going into a spasm muscle. Icing when the bag's hole is too small. My body is working against me like the enemy when I need to urinate and cannot. Stabbing pain, electrocuting pain, pressure pain, certain kind of snakes attack and digest by squeezing. When image to mind, feels like something is doing that, not my throat. And then I asked the homeopath, Daphna, would you mind closing the door? Thank you. So I asked the homeopath who sent the case if she could get an opposite sensation to the squeezing and the tight and the twisting and the closed. And she said that she couldn't get anything. The main thing is that she wants to be free of the pain, and the pain stopped her intimacy. She doesn't want people to see her in pain and worried that she will have the pain forever. So of course, the way that I read it through and I highlighted the things that seemed unique about the way that she talks. And not just that, but also the things that repeat, the things that are in a pattern. And so the two main things to me that felt that they repeated and came back consistently is the nature of the pain. So it's tight, it's squeezing, it's constricting, it's twisting. And the other thing that comes up again and again and again is her feeling of being an outsider and being rejected and being looked down on, not being able to fit in, not playing by the rules, and nobody's her friend, hoping at lunch that somebody will sit with her. And that goes to the miasm, which suggests to me a leprosy miasm. But she also talks about unpredictability a lot, and wanting to have control over her body, things feeling unpredictable, and that is wanting control and finding the world to be unpredictable. That goes more to the Cancer miasm. So I see both here, but what seems more dominant is the leprosy miasm, this feeling of being an outsider and rejected. So this is what I see. There is the third thing that comes up a little bit here in the case is her repeated mentions of a snake. And she talks, so definitely you can see the sensations of constriction and tightening in a snake. And you see that here. But when you look at the picture of what a snake remedy looks like, you don't really see this is my reading of the case. There is a lot about a mouse being digested, the twisting of what a snake moves like, and the squeezing. And so there's a lot of imagery, but when you think of a snake remedy, you think of competition, attack, deception, suspicion, magnetism, charisma, hiding from behind, well, attacking from behind. These are a lot of like snake themes. And I don't see that in the case, but that could be because this is an extraction of the case, or it could be because she's not, I mean, she talks about her husband, but she does not talk in a victim aggressor way. She feels like she can't control her body, but and the body is not listening to her, and the pain feels like an enemy. But all of these other very strong things that you see in a snake remedy, if you think of lachesis as the exemplar, or if you think of other snake remedies, this competition, suspicion, attack, all of this is not there. And so to me, so she has been given snake remedies and they did not do anything at all, which, which I feel like that the reason they didn't do anything is because she doesn't present as a snake case. And the thing that she talks about all the time is her pain and wanting to be free from the pain, how the pain affects her, how the pain is increasing her anxiety. And when someone talks just over and over about pain and their reaction to the pain and how the pain makes them feel, to me, that feels very much like a plant remedy. So part of my training and part of my understanding of our materia medica in homeopathy is once I saw the differences between plant remedies and mineral remedies and animal remedies and how they all do have something in common, it's very difficult now to think of remedies without having that kingdom background associated with them, because you understand how plant remedies come across and you understand how mineral remedies and how animal remedies are all about survival. And I don't see mineral themes here. And I don't definitely, despite all the mentions of the snakes, I don't see animal or snake themes in the case. She has snake imagery and she sees snakes around her, copperheads, but that could just be the environment she's living in, what she talks over and over. And so plant remedies is about sensitivity and about something happening and then you react to it. So it's sensitivity and reactivity. That's what plant remedies very broadly are about. And so the way that she talks is very much to me like a plant. She is just consumed by her pain. She wants to get, so the way that I looked at the case was, in my head, I'm thinking of a plant remedy. And what we have to go on is all the sensations that she gives for her pain. And what I decided to do then was just to repertorize using two different methods. So I tried to analyze the case with the program, but in two different ways. And so here, so I made some notes and we're just going to read along instead of me typing them all up again. So let me make this smaller. So here are all the things that I highlighted. And what I'm going to try and do then is to kind of encapsulate them into certain themes that are running in the case. And so the themes that I see running in the case here are, so this first section is really all about the pain. So in a vice, I keep writing, so here. So she feels like she's gripped in a vice. And there is some imagery there about a metal cage or, she sees like the springs of the cage of a trap. And she reacts very strongly to that. There's a lot of squeezing and closed and constricted and twisting and tight and pressure and things closing in. So this is one set of sensations, or this is how her pain is. And then you have unpredictable. She doesn't expect it. She needs control, power over it. There is some snake imagery. And then very strongly, this feeling of being an outsider, rejected, not belonging, not being seen, and people looking down on her. So I see some cancer miasm. I definitely see very strong leprosy miasm themes. And then there is some snake imagery. The other thing she said that was personal about herself is that she's an introvert, and when things get too overwhelming or the pain gets too bad, she goes into the woods. And that, I assume she does that because that ameliorates her. So let me share the program. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move this to the side so we have it. This. Okay, so now everybody can see the program, hopefully. Let me just check if there's anything in the chat. Why not Lily Flory? That's a good question. Yes, absolutely. That's a plant family, very sensitive to being excluded and not being included in a group. I think that's a great suggestion. So let's see now if the quality of her pain and if we can do something with the miasm information that we have. I'm gonna see if there's anything in the questions. Okay. So are you using complete? Let me see. Yeah, we can use complete. I'm going to use complete, and then I'm going to use a completely different one. Marina's asking if I'm using complete. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So we go here and let's build a clipboard. So I'm going to look at the quality of the pain, and generally I go back and forth between using the repertory directly and then finding the rubrics in there. Or sometimes I just, go up here. If you've seen me before, then you know that I just tend to use the global search. But here we can use, so let's do this, since we're in the mind section and it's already open. I'm going to just type 4. Oh, I'm in the, here, let me go back in the repertory. So what is here? Okay. So if I type Forsaken, and we can put that on a clipboard. there isn't really anything in the sub-rubrics. So even though it's a large rubric, I'm just going to put it on the clipboard. This feeling of wanting control and finding things are unpredictable, there isn't really a great rubric for it. So what I thought we could use was fear happen, something will, and it's still, a fairly large rubric. We could look at the sub-rubrics, but there isn't really anything appropriate that fits the case. So it's better to take the larger rubric. So we'll put that. Okay. And that rubric is added. I haven't opened the clipboard, but you can see it's building over here. And then let's look at her pain. So if you go back to the case, let me show you. So if we go back to the case here. Okay. You can see that the quality of the pain is not different in different parts of the body. She feels the same kind of pain everywhere. So if you look at the general, repetitive, consistent pain sensations, then we're looking at squeezing and squeezing in the area of the bone. This is her sits bones, squeezing in the bone, hard to sit pressure. Then if you go down, tighter, feel it in my shoulders and my chest. My throat is closed, constricted. It's the same sensation in the pelvis. Twisting in both directions, you're squeezing and turning. The twisted in your gut like fear. So even when she has not pain, but a mental a feeling, a somatic feeling in response to the anxiety, it's again twisting. If I'm afraid of a situation, she feels the same tightening and twisting. So she's feeling squeezing, tightening, and twisting in her sits bones, in her throat, in her shoulders and chest, and in her gut when she feels anxiety. So that really makes it not a local sensation. Then it's a general sensation because she feels it not just in her physicals and in different parts of the body, but also in her mental states. And so when we have that, I'm going to be looking for the pain, not in the different parts of the body, but in generalities. So when I come back to the program, here, I could go into generalities and just look at all the different pain sensations, but I find it easier to go up here. And you see, it gives me the section generalities. And now I'm going to say pain within 3 words of squeezing. And that will give me all the pain, squeezing pain rubrics from the generalities section. So when I do that, it gives me all my repertories. And Marina, you can see I have the 21 at the top, but I also have some older repertories, which I like, and I've kept 2011, I think was my first repertory, or 2005, which I've taken out. But you can see here, generalities, pain, squeezing. The other thing you might have a question about is you could take this large rubric, but the squeezing to me feels, when she talks about it, like a snake is coiling up her body, twisting in both directions. Or she also talks about the pepper grinder. which is also twisting in both directions. If you think about when you do a pepper grinder, one hand is going one way, the other. So that's a twisting motion as well. You could consider using generalities, pain, squeezing external, instead of using the larger rubric. So we can, we can do both, but I'm going to put the larger rubric in for now. And then what I'm going to do is just do the same thing, but look at twisting. Here, I have these here. So I'm going to put them down here. And so let's look at. So twisting, she had a lot of images, snake, pepper grinder. And there we go, see generalities, pain, twisting. And then the other image that she had was being in a vice and a metal trap. And so there isn't, so actually let's do it. I used gripping for that. Forgot to put the 3 in there. Let's see what comes up. Generalities, pain, gripping. So we can put there, but what it would be interesting to see if anything comes up for the word vice, which so there is something for a headache, but let's look in generalities. And you have generalities, pain, pressing, vice as in so we could definitely put that in as well. And so if we go back to our list of themes in the case, we've repertorized, we've put in rubrics for the quality of the pain, the sensations. We've put in rubrics for her feeling of forsakenness, like, not being seen, being invisible, being rejected. We've put in something about her desire to have control over her environment. But I think there's one other thing that we can do here to supplement that. And I find that sort of cancer miasm urge to control your environment, I find that really well represented in the QREP. And I don't know if people are familiar with the QREP, but this is a repertory that's put together by Jeremy Sher, and it's really about themes. He's taken themes. What Jeremy has done is taken the most prominent mental qualities and put all the remedies in those qualities. So if you have a picture of a person or a certain quality or characteristic associated with them, instead of gathering rubrics from all the different parts of the mental section and different sections in the repertory, he's already done that work. Like ambition, if you think of ambition, other than mind ambitious, there are other, like there's a lot of delusions, there's other things that go to ambitious, but he's collected all of them and all of the remedies that are prominently represented and created what's called an ambition quality or a big ego quality. Divided states, feeling like you're split, duty and response. So, and every year he adds a few more as he works on them, because it's a lot of work to create one quality, collect all the rubrics from everywhere. But what I find here is that sometimes when you're looking for something specific and you would have to collect 8 rubrics to create a complete picture of that quality or characteristic, you can come here and you can find that quality. So if I look at control as a quality, and what he's done is then there are remedies for which this quality is front and center. It would be in level 4, bolded and underlined and capitals. Then he's collected those in one rubric. And then there are remedies that for which it's an issue, but it's not front and center. And those are in the control quality. But you can read about the qualities and understand what they are by going. So I did a right click on control quality, and it brings me up into this little menu here, and I say view rubric info. And so here you get the name of the rubric and the meaning of the rubric. So suitable for any patient where control is a theme of the case. This quality represents excessive control of self or others, environment, as well as being controlled by others. And there are, several remedies, obviously. So what I'd like to do is to add that. And that also represents her desire to have control and feeling sensitive to the unpredictability of her environment and her body. And so when we come to the clipboard that we've created, you can see it's not a huge clipboard. I have, if you really want actually to simplify things, I would even take all of the pain sensations because I know they're hers, and I can make a group and say pain sensations. And now that simplifies the clipboard even more. And you can put, I like to have things next to each other that are related to each other. So we've got the forsaken feeling, which she talks about a lot. We've got the mind, fear, happen, something will, and the control quality, which are related. And then we've got all the pain sensations. The one thing that's missing, well, there's two things missing. And one is the whole snake imagery. And because she does talk about snakes a lot, but she doesn't talk like a snake. So, and there's really no good rubric to capture that. So I'm going to see, the one thing she did say was that she was scared of snakes. So we could definitely put that in here. And the other thing we can look at, and I'm going to go back to the QREP, is I think he has a snake quality. And so we can see what he says about snake quality. Suitable for any patient where snake-related issues are a theme of the case. This quality represents any snake issues, such as fears, delusions, dreams, thoughts, or many experiences meeting and attracting snakes. This rubric includes all the snake remedies, naturally, but it also includes plants with snake names in the first degree. It does not include remedies for ill effects of bites or venom. So we can try, we can experiment with putting that rubric in, and then we can also just go back and talk about fear. Oh, let me put the mind section. So again, I restricted it to the mind section so I don't get it from everywhere. And then delusion within 3 words of snakes. And then let's see what comes up. So this is a difficult one because she's not having a delusion that there are snakes around, but she thinks her pain is sort of like a snake-like pain. And so we can add that, and then we can, and to capture it completely, what I would probably do is to go in here and I would just combine the two. So there we go. So now we have, I mean, I feel like this is a representative clipboard for the way that I understood the case. Yes, so the fact that the pain comes suddenly, yes, you can take it as a snake quality, but then it could also be an insect quality, but it could also just be, as Piyush, I think it was Piyush, as Piyush says, that it's just a quality of unpredictability. and not being able to control something. And I'm inclined to go with that. So Eftia then is asking, would you not consider the bladder as an organ of pathology, like a general rubric? I wouldn't, because she has the pain, at least the information that I'm getting. Yes, that's her chief complaint, but the way that she talks about the pain and the quality of that pain in all the different parts of the body, it goes beyond just the bladder. So if I was looking at this case in a more classical way, where I didn't have a lot of leads into if the patient was really not giving any information about whether they were it was more of a plant case or a mineral case or an animal case, and I just had a bunch of organ symptoms, then yes, I would put in a lot of, just whatever, bladder this and stomach that and abdomen this and extremities that. But in this case, she just talks about the pain, and she talks about the sensations in the different parts of the body. She does not even focus as much, at least in this extract of the case, as the bladder being the biggest issue, i.e., the pain in the bladder strikes her when she's having lunch with all these snotty women, or this happens, or in the woods, she can't control it, or the bladder is not a prominent part of her outpouring. Yeah, the pain sensations are, but I don't see the bladder being very prominent. Yes, that's her chief complaint, but she really even just talks about the pain in her sits bones. So the pain is really in the bones, and the bladder spasms is something that she's been diagnosed with and has apparently had for 10 plus years. But the pain that she's actually talking about is in her sits bones, in her shoulders, in her chest. And then she feels the same sensation in her gut when she's worried about a situation. So I personally, I wouldn't put the bladder in. And we don't know if she has cystitis. So I wouldn't put the cystitis in. And then would you differentiate with the malarial miasm too? No, because the malarial miasm is it comes and there is a lot of strenuous effort for a while and then it goes away. So there is a periodicity about malarial miasm, which is not there in this case. There's an unpredictability in this case, which bothers her, and she wants to exert control over her body, but there's a lot more of the outsider and the rejection. So I would not look at malaria. To me, those are the two prominent miasms in the case. So and then let me see if there's any questions here. Okay, no. So let's look at the clipboard. It's a concise clipboard, also because we've grouped certain things. If I ungrouped them, then, there would be about 10 rubrics here. Sometimes people come in with a lot of pathology and you have to repertorize, and then, okay, I might have 14, 16, sometimes 20, very rarely, only for those patients. In general, when you're getting this kind of very focused image of this patient, then I try to stick to fewer rubrics and just hone in on the things that are consistent and unique. And so you can see, obviously, the first remedy that comes up is lachesis, which the snake remedies have been tried. And in fact, I believe she mentions boa by name. I know the boa remedy was tried, and I think a couple of other snake remedies were tried. So would you consider a rubric regarding isolation as a response? Marina is saying that's forsaken. She's exactly right. I took forsaken feeling because it covers all of these aspects. And so what I would like to do, so we can go through the top 10 remedies, and because of the program being the way it is and our materia medica being the way it is, most of the top 10 remedies are going to be polycrusts. And I don't find that polycrusts, polycrusts are these big, multi-purpose. Yeah. Okay, polycrusts. And so, unless I'm in a case where, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really going in blind and I'm repertorizing everything, and then I'm going to study each of the remedies, including the poly. But in this case, I feel really like this is a plant remedy. So the first thing that I will do is just use one of these filters at the top, which are pre-built for kingdoms, and I will just restrict it by plants. And so you see now the remedies that come up, and it'll be easier if I do this. Let's do this. So I'm hiding the clipboard for a while and just looking at the graph. And you can see the remedies that come up are also sort of running the gamut in terms of the plant remedies. They're all over the place. Pulsatilla, stramonium, ruta. So she definitely doesn't feel like a stramonium. She doesn't have the stramonium qualities. So we can look at pulsatilla. We can look at ruta, which is a prominent pain remedy. Then we have lycopodium, and lycopodium is coming up for certain things, but she doesn't present as a lycopodium person. A lycopodium person would have at least ostensibly more self-esteem and sort of a bombastic presence than this person who feels completely all alone in a lunch meeting. The lycopodium person would be pushing themselves forward, whether they felt that intrinsically or not, but they would. I don't see her as a lycopodium. Ignatia, yes, it's coming up because of the cancer miasm and probably some of the pain qualities. Definitely not hyoscyamus. So then, further down the line, I see anacardium and I see rustox. And then further down the line, I see rus glabra. So what I'm seeing is, and I have to talk, okay, so let's see. Is in forsaken the feeling and isolation the response. But yes, correct. But forsaken feeling covers the isolated feeling. You feel isolated. Feeling forsaken is the same as feeling isolated. And Epthea says the Rutaceae have the squeezing quality. Exactly. So I love that because when you think about her sensations, and if you look at it as a sensation case, the two plant families that come to mind are Anacardiaceae and Rutaceae. Anacardiaceae has the sensation of feeling caught and stiff and tight and unable to move as if in a vice. And Rutaceae has the sensation of this twisting pain, twisting in two directions. And both of them are very strong remedies for pain. So the other thing, and this is a resource for me, but it's useful. I want to show you because actually somebody has done this work, and it's so easy to grasp something when it is in the form of a picture. So when I read this case and I thought that this was a plant case, the two families that came to mind because of the quality of the pain and the sensation of pain is really important because it mirrors the sensation of the family. So what I want to show you here, and let me Actually, I'm going to just share my desktop instead of switching back and forth so you can see. What I want to put up here is the family Anacardiaceae. It is a plant family. It's the poison ivy cashew family. And you can see, so the sensation, there is a force from outside which holds tight and you're unable to move. You're caught stiff, tight. There's tension. You're stuck, gripped. And, you know, that's basically sort of what you're like. You're sitting aggravates, being in house aggravates. She likes to go into the woods. And so this was one image that came to me. And then the other image that came to me that I want to show you, which I think Efthia brought it up, is, yeah, Rutaceae. And so in Rutaceae, which is the citrus family, you also have this squeezing and twisting sensation. You feel like she said something about the trash compactor coming at her from all sides. And this squeezing, twisting, compressing, constricting, twist, compress, break, choking, compressing, strangling, which is also a snake sensation. These are also all snake sensations. And the passive reaction here is that you feel weak and drained, and there's lassitude and numbness, and she feels like her husband, she mentioned that her husband thinks, she wishes that she could do more, and he has to do a lot and she can't do as much. So I'm reading into that. I don't have the details. And in both cases, the desire is to move. And so she goes into the woods. I'm connecting the dots here because I, haven't met the patient and I don't have the complete case. But if I go back from here, back into our graph here, and then instead of just doing a generic filter for plants, if I go to what the two families that my mind went on, then I would use this filter button here. And in the kingdom, I would type Rutaceae and it comes up at the top. And then I would type Anacardiaceae and it comes up. And I'm going to say apply. And then what this does is it restricts the entire repertorization to just those two families, those two plant families. And you can actually see Ruta is coming up strongly, like it's there for all of these qualities that we picked up. Anacardium, not so, and then, it sort of peters out from there. But the four top remedies here are Ruta. I'm going to dismiss Anacardium because Anacardium has a very peculiar and distinct mental state, which we are not seeing, the devil and the angel, and it's a completely different mental state. So I would exclude these. And so then I would consider Ruta and Rustox and Rus glabra. The interesting thing here is you can see the miasms here, see? And so if you look at the bottom of the screen over here, you can see when I scroll through, the orange, come on. Okay, so there we go. So the orange is really the leprosy miasm. And then Rustox, I think, is typhoid. And interestingly, Ruta is cancer, and so is Anacardium. So the top three remedies, we have one remedy that's cancer miasm and another remedy that's leprosy miasm. And so I think it depends on the full case now to really see whether Ruta would be more appropriate or Rus would be more appropriate. And, the obviously, one thing we can do here when you have the program, let's say that we have the complete case and we don't have to go back. The interesting thing would be to read about both remedies and then maybe compare. I would pick those two because those are the two miasms I feel are being reflected in the case. And so let's do, you see, so if you look at in terms of themes, if you look at what Ruta is, according to Jeremy Scher, let's see if this is helpful. I think this is not as helpful. So let's go to, so it's a good drug for various bone cancers. We don't have a lot of information here. Cancerous affections, old people, death desires, loathing of life, suicidal. So this is, must be in control with squeezing, twisting, and crushing sensations. That's the central feel of the remedy, according to Dr. Shankaran. If we read up the remedy on, if you read up the remedy anywhere, actually, it's going to talk a lot about the qualities of the pain. So obviously it's a tendon remedy worse. So these things will not help us, especially even like the nucleus of the remedy that Vermeulen thinks, it's not going to help us in the way that this case has been looked at and analyzed. Let's go back here and then let's see what we can find on Rus glabra, which is a much smaller remedy. And so if we come here, let's see what we have on Rus. Okay. So the miasm is leprosy. And this is really from the proving. Dreams of violence, dreams. Case. Okay. So this woman, so I read through this, and what is interesting here is that the pain, she describes the pain, it feels like it's going to explode, like it's in a vice. Then there is marked stiffness of the neck from the pain. Clothes were plain, body language is very guarded, eye contact is difficult. So this, obviously, there's a lot of information here about the case that's given and that in things that are specific to the case. She feels totally responsible and guilty for her relationship problems. So in this case, she feels like the intimacy was stopped because of her pain. She's feeling alien, so her self-loathing is very strong, mental self-ridicule, feeling very alienated. I don't understand how people in society operate or think. Everything seems so foreign. Why do people do the things that they do? And I think that there is some similarity in terms of how this woman is operating in the South, which is a foreign culture. She says, I don't dress like them. I don't follow the rules. I don't know what the logic is. But anyway, there's interesting stuff here. The other thing that's here is, I wouldn't think of a snake, but I did, when I was looking and rejecting a snake, I was also thinking, because of this trap and vice imagery, of a small animal caught in a vice. And interestingly, this case of Rus glabra talks about, I was reminded of a small animal camouflaging itself in a dangerous environment. If I'm quiet, maybe people will not notice me. But her sensitivity meant that she was also acutely aware of those around her. So take it for what you will. But if we go back here, I would say, this is my reading of the case. And so, I think there can be as many analyses and remedies as there are homeopaths. So this is what I came to. I think that we have to look for a remedy from either the Rutaceae or the Anacardiaceae family. And the way to hone in might be through the miasms and through honing in more on whether she feels there are two different sensations going on. So there is definitely squeezing in a vise and the trash compactor. And there was another image about the metal cage, maybe. And then you have the twisting, ringing, kind of the snake going up and down the body, the twisting in two directions. She actually says twisting in two directions. And then she says also the pepper grinder. So there are two different kind of images, but everything feels squeezed and constricted and tight. And those are the two families, I think, that are relevant here. So, and it's all a domino effect. So if you start by reading through and you say this is a plant, you start assuming that this is a plant and not a snake case. Then when you say it's a plant, then you, based on what you have, you hone in on the families. And then once you come to the families, you can look at the miasm and you can look at the remedies within those families that show up based on the repertorization that you do. So these are the remedies that show up. And actually there are 3 remedies here that are from the leprosy miasm. So maybe it's worthwhile even to look at xanthoxylum, this one, xanthoxylum, which I'm not familiar with it. I have not prescribed it. And then there's another remedy here, Cammocladia dentata, which I completely, at least I know the name of xanthoxylum. I do not know Cammocladia dentata. But what I'm saying is, analyzing this way, you have a group of remedies that are possible. And it's easier when you have this to go back to the case and to go back to the patient to get some more information to eliminate some of these and then figure out which one you could possibly take. I don't think this is a bad approach, given that none of the snake remedies have done even a single thing for this lady. So I'm going to wrap up. Let me see if I had anything when I did this case that I wanted to talk about. Yep, we talked about this. Yep, we will talk about this. The only other thing is the point that I wanted to make that I had made a note of is the fact that she likes to go into nature and she's ameliorated by nature. And many people say I like to go into the woods or I like to work in my garden, and those things are kind of hard to repertorize. So I just, sometimes I find this global search like incredible. So what I did was I just typed in nature and I hit enter. And you see, so you get things about someone's nature, but you also get beauties of nature. Gentle and clean, everything is. And dreams, countryside, nature. And then you get mind, love, nature 4, which I think suits her really well. And it's not a rubric that I knew before or used. And then also sensitive, oversensitive to nature. And that might be something you might consider. I might even just put sensitive, oversensitive, love, nature 4, and dreams of nature into a combined rubric and add that. Actually, let's try that and see what that does. Dreams. She doesn't have that, but we generally tend to combine those. And so that's a very small rubric. So we can go in there and there's nothing coming up. We can take that out. So interestingly, when you put mind, love, nature 4, and you put mind, sensitive, oversensitive towards nature, the remedy that pops up to the top is Rus glabra, which is the leprosy miasm remedy from the Anacardiaceae family. And Ruta pops to number 2. So, you know, I think that's indicative. And that's where I'm going to leave the case. Let me see if there are any other comments or questions. Okay. Can you make it bigger? Sure. The program? You want me to zoom into the program, Marina? Let's see. There. Is that better? There. And then Ruta and both Rustox and Rus-G. Yes, I agree. Rustox is right here. Rus-G is right at the top now, and Ruta is there. And then Anacardium I'm dismissing because it's just, you know, very different. Love of nature, Rus-G is there. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And I didn't expect, because it's just such a small remedy, Rus glabra. And so when we put that in, you know, it pops it to the top, and I think that's quite significant. So we'll close this clipboard. Oh, you know, guys, but what I really wanted to do was also show you something else I did with the Rus glabra case. I'm calling it the Rus glabra case. It could not, it may not be, but here, I want to show you something else I did with this case. And so if we go here. Yeah, okay. So let's go here, and I want to show you something else I did. So I showed you, I basically used the complete, and then I used the Q rep, because I think sometimes with these broader qualities, it's hard to capture them, and I go to things like that. But this was also really useful, and I want to show you. I'm not going to recreate the whole thing like I created the clipboard, but I'm going to show you what I did. And what I did was I used the sensation rep. And the sensation rep is really a repertory of sensations. And you can see that all I did, so obviously here, you're not going to be able to repertorize the control aspect or the forsaken aspect, because this is really about sensations. And to me, this was really a case that was focused on sensations and how she feels. And so what I did was I just pulled the sensations. So forsaken, yes, but tight, squeeze, twisted, as if in a vice, constriction, sensitivity to being held back, and free movement. And you can see, obviously, the first 2 groups of remedies that come up are the Boisdet, and she has already been given the Boisdet remedies. And then the reptile group, which again includes the snakes, and she has had remedy. But look what the other 2 groups are, Rutaceae and Anacardiaceae. And I didn't even have to filter. I didn't do any filters. I just pulled the sensations up. And I haven't massaged it in any way. I have just pulled the sensations. And when you pull the sensations, you can see really quickly, you can see, yes, you get the snake themes, even though, look, on the clipboard, we haven't put any snake remedies, but the sensations are snake sensations. And so, yes, you get some of these, especially the twisting and in the vise, these are very boa, python, constrictor type sensations. So you get that. But then the next two groups of remedies that this indicates is the rutaceae and the anacardiaceae. I found that really interesting. So we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and do the second case, which is a very different case.